edition of Movies That Move We. Today we're going to be discussing Jordan Peele's film, Us. But before we do, and as always, we have to recognize our sponsors, starting with Irby Worldwide Entertainment. Worldwide means worldwide. So check them out on Facebook. They are there for all of your DJing needs. Check them out on Facebook at Irby Worldwide Entertainment. Share Dazzle's Salon of Chesapeake, Virginia. They always keep Nicole's hair looking absolutely fabulous. Check them out if you are in the area. That's Share, spelled S-H-E-A-R, Dazzle's Salon. And also Color You Cosmetics, who again, they keep Nicole's face looking fabulous. Color, spelled the British way, C-O-L-O-U-R, letter U, Cosmetics. They will put your face on for you, teach you how to put your own face on. They have their own product line. Nicole is an ambassador for Color You Cosmetics. Go check them out online. And I forget to say this so often. Got to give a shout out to Robert Rice Jr. That's the opening music that you hear. Check him out on smoothology.net, where you can listen and download all of his music. All right, so let's get into it. Jordan Peele's Us. Now, if you've been following us for any amount of time, you know I'm a Jordan Peele fan. I like his way of storytelling. And again, with Us, he throws a lot of symbolism at you. And in this movie, he pretty much told you the story within the first 30 minutes. If you sit there and pause and analyze what you just saw about every 5 minutes, which I did because my name is Nikay and that's what I do. So let's talk about all the things that you're seeing. Let's start at the very beginning. He gave an interview to Refinery 29 shortly after the movie came out. And they asked him, what are you trying to say with this film? And his response was basically, you know, I did this movie to talk about the us versus them, the haves and the have-nots that exist in society, and what would happen if we ran into ourselves on the other side of this us versus them. So if you were the person who had all, you're walking down the street and you see yourself on a corner holding a cup out saying alms for the poor, what would that do to you? The way I phrased the question on Instagram the other day is, what would happen if you met your darker self? And that's not to imply that people who don't have are dark, but the way it's represented in this telling, for those who have, coming face to face with themselves, they're seeing the darkest side of themselves. So there's that. And that gets into some of the other things that Jordan Peele uses to tell this entire story. So starting at the very beginning, we see an advertisement for Hands Across America, which if you weren't around in 1986, you have no idea. So let me explain. So Hands Across America was a fundraising event. The idea was to create a human chain of people holding hands from East Coast to West Coast in order to raise funds for those in need. Funds raised would go to charities in each state. It wasn't a great success necessarily. They raised, I think, 15 million. They raised, I think, 35 million. 15 million went to donations. Everything else was towards the expense to run that fundraising campaign. One of the challenges were there were gaps in the line because, of course, if you're going to try and have humans holding hands from left coast to the other coast, well, you're going to cross some waterways, roadways, other modes of transportation, mountains. And so it didn't quite pan out the way people expected. But it was an attempt to unify, to organize, come together for a cause. Keep that on the sticky side of your brain. Within the first 30 minutes, we see the number 11. We see and hear the number 11 come up a lot. Excuse me. The first time we see it is when young Adelaide is with her parents at the amusement park. And there's a guy holding up a sign that says Jeremiah 11:11. That scripture is basically God telling people, oh, and I'm paraphrasing, oh, y'all want to read out the book of acting up? All right, I'm going to bring doom and calamity on you. So that explains what you see after the first 30 minutes in the movie. But also the symbol of 11:11. For those of you who are into numerology, you know, seeing the time or the numbers 11:11 together, it's a symbol for coincidence. It's also most commonly known as a symbol for twin flames. Keep that on the sticky side of your brain. As you move through the scene, young Addie wanders away from her parents and ends up in the House of Mirrors. And as she's going into the House of Mirrors, there's a recording, a man telling the story of the four worlds, which is basically to compare it to what I'm familiar with, what a lot of people are familiar with, is the creation story. And I won't get into it, but when you have the time, look up the story of the grandmother spider. That's the story that's being told as she walks in. Keep that on the sticky side of your brain. And so she walks in, she gets confused from all of the mirrors. And if you watched the Nope discussion that we did a few weeks ago, then you heard it actually not in Nope, when we talked about Candyman, okay? The use of mirrors and shooting the scene through certain doorways. We see this again in the fun house where Addie enters and she's all turned around, and then she meets her doppelganger, her twin, okay? Those mirrors symbolize, again, another dimension, and in this case, another world. So we move forward to when she comes out, she's not speaking, her parents take her to the therapist, and her mother is just oh my gosh, I want my baby back. What is wrong with my baby? And her dad's like, yo, she was traumatized. She'll be all right. She'll talk again. She'll be fine. You know, you see the vast difference in their attitude and demeanor. And Adelaide is watching this interaction between her parents and the therapist, trying to figure out what's wrong with her through a mirror. She's seeing their reflection. So the office door is back here, the mirror is over here, and she's sitting and watching them have this whole discussion about her. Again, keep in mind, this is young Adelaide coming out of the fun house and looking into another world now. Keep that on the sticky side of your brain. And so then we fast forward to adult Adelaide. She's in the car. She's going on vacation with her family. She's going back to her childhood home. And they get there and she walks in and she's immediately, all of the memories of her childhood come flooding back. And in particular, that incident. That's a central incident in her life. And so as she's laying there and she's remembering these things, her husband's in the background talking. Lupita Nyong'o plays adult Adelaide. Winston Duke plays her husband, Gabe. And he's just happy-go-lucky, positive dude, excited to be on vacation. And he's talking about their friends that they're meeting to go to the beach later. And she's like, do we have to go to that beach? Because that's where this incident happened. She doesn't want to revisit it. She has a strange feeling. And as she asks this question, she's laying on the couch and she's looking at the coffee table. There's a sculpture, not a sculpture, a toy spider. And a real spider crawls from underneath it. Again, we see twins. All right. Also, when I saw the movie the first time and I saw the spiders, I immediately thought Anansi. Okay. The African god, the trickster, the storyteller. Which, you know, that could or might not be it, but that's immediately what I thought of. And so, fast forward a little bit more. It's the evening time. Adelaide's getting the kids situated for bed. Gabe is like, yeah, put them kids to bed so we can do adult things, which everyone enjoyed that part. But she goes to put the kids to bed, and as she's going to put the kids to bed, she hears the news program that Gabe is listening to, and they're giving the baseball score. And they say the score between this team and that team is 11-11. It's tied. And she kind of pauses because she knows what 11-11 means. On their way in, they saw a guy that Addie remembers from her childhood who was standing in the amusement park with the sign that says Jeremiah 11:11. That guy was being put into the back of an ambulance. So that day was the second time 11:11 happened. Remember, 11:11, coincidence, and twin flames. And so she goes in, she checks on her daughter, tells her daughter, off the cell phone, go to bed, closes the door. Her daughter's like, yeah, whatever, because, you know, teenagers. And she's back on her phone after her mother closes the door. She goes to check on her son, Jason. And she's getting him settled for bed. And as she's about to, you know, lay him down, tuck him in, he points to the clock. He goes, look, 11:11. At this point, is it a coincidence? Who's to say? So she gets apprehensive. She doesn't feel a good vibe. The next day, they go to the beach. Now, the scene going to the beach, you see the family, 1, 2, 3, 4, walking across the sand towards where Adelaide's friends are, and they cast a very long shadow. Think of that shadow as what's coming next, foreshadowing, if you will. And so they sit down and they're talking with the friends. Their friends, also a family of 4 twins. They have actual twin daughters. And this is part of that us versus them. It's a subtle us versus them, because Gabe is a little envious of Josh. Josh and Kitty, these friends, are a little more affluent than Addie and Gabriel are. And so Gabe was like, oh yeah, he has that boat and he just rubs it in my face. And did you see the new car that they got? Yeah, he just does that to piss me off. So there's a little bit of competition between them. When Addie sits down with Kitty, they're under the beach umbrellas, they're chilling out, they're watching the kids do their thing. And Kitty points out that she's had work done. And Adelaide is like, oh my gosh, that looks so good. Wow, you went and had work done. And then Kitty comments, oh, I hate you. Your skin, your face is perfect. How do you do it? You don't age. So again, that us versus them. This one has something that I don't. I want what they have. Types of twins. So one of the things that happened, they're sitting on a beach blanket that has circles on it. And someone threw a frisbee and it landed perfectly on the circle. And again, Addie's noticing the number of coincidences that are not quite feeling like coincidences anymore. And she's getting nervous. Later that night, she explains to Gabe, she was like, I want to leave. I'm not comfortable. And she tells him the story about how she was in the fun house and, you know, she saw her other self. And it wasn't a reflection. It was an actual little girl just like her. And at first, Gabe kind of scoffs at the idea, and then he realizes that she's serious, and he's like, oh, okay, then, you know, what do we do about it? And before they can come up with a solution, there's a family at the foot of the driveway. And they're holding hands, kind of like the Hands Across America figures that were on the t-shirt and in the advertisement. And this is where Jeremiah 11:11 comes into play, because this is where the calamity starts. So we end up meeting the doppelgangers for both Gabriel and Addie's family, as well as Kitty and Josh's family. Okay, doppelganger, another word for twins. Got a running theme of twins throughout this whole thing. I'm not going to tell you what happens after all hell breaks loose. We don't need to like redo the whole movie, but in keeping with the theme of the twins, the yin and the yang that's going on here, Red is the doppelganger that switched places with young Addie. Let that rest in your mind for a minute. The other sets of twins are right there within Addie and Gabe's family. And you're like, well, McKay, how are they twins? That sounds weird. You know, Jason is younger than Zora. They're kids. They're not twins. They're siblings, but they're not twins. I'm not talking about them. I'm not talking about the kids exclusively. The twins within the family are Addie and Jason, and then Zora and Gabe. They're the two that are kind of happy-go-lucky, go with the flow, you know, everything's fine. In Zora's case, you know, the world is annoying because, hey, teenager. But Jason and Addie, and you see it in the scene after they meet their doppelganger, they can look at each other and they communicate almost telepathically. And then again, you see this with the doppelgangers family, where Red and Pluto, which is Jason's doppelganger, where they are joined. So a lot of times people think twin flames only applies to that romantic connection. But between mother and child, you see twin flames on both sides of the doppelganger. And when Red is telling the story of how she came to be and what she wants, which is essentially she wants her life back, you know, because everything, she explains that everything that you did out here with fresh air and open sky and good food and loving parents, I experienced in this other place without any love, without any affection, without warm sun rays and fresh water and fruits and all of that stuff. I want what you took from me. Okay, and she says that we are tethered. So everything you experienced, I experienced, though it wasn't as pleasant. When you got married, I got married, whether I loved that man or not. When you had children, I had children. When you had to have a C-section, you had a medical team to take care of that for you. I had to cut my baby out myself. And so what you see is what she's describing, I should say, is what in some communities, some spiritual communities, they call soul ties. Again, showing that this is not always a romantic thing, and it ain't always a positive and happy ending type thing either. So, as far as describing the movie, I'm going to leave it there. If you haven't seen the movie, watch the movie and then come back and tell us if you saw what I saw, because that's what I saw. As far as the cast, fabulous cast. They had great material to work with, so they really delivered, especially the kids that played Zora and Jason. Jason was played by Evan Alex, and Zora was played by Shahidi Wright Joseph. They all had to play two roles. And, you know, for the adults, we kind of expect the adults to nail playing themselves twice. But when kids get it, and especially with this content, it's like, wow, they really did the darn thing. Okay. And I was particularly impressed with Evan Alex, because his doppelganger was yeah. Again, if you haven't seen it, I'm gonna let you find out. If you have seen it, you know. So I'm biased. I've already told you I love a good Jordan Peele film, and so out of 5 stars, I'm giving this 10. It's great storytelling, and I like that he doesn't approach things in a normal way. He could have very easily told the story of the us versus them by, you know, creating this happy ending story where a wealthy person meets a poor person and lifts them up out of the gutter. He didn't do that. The question, as I put it, as I said on Instagram, was what would happen if you met your darker self, the side of yourself that wasn't so generous, that's cold, that's empty? How would you deal with that darker self? Is that a self you want to meet? Again, let that rest on the sticky side of your brain. We will be back next week. The movie that I want to share has not been released yet, and I know this is starting to feel kind of one-dimensional because it's another Jordan Peele film. But it's for the kids. It's for the kids. So we'll be back next week with another edition of Movies That Move We. In the meantime, make sure you follow your mods. Nicole hasn't been with us for a while, but follow her page. Look up Nicole DeCandice Google it. You will find all her platforms, her YouTube channel, Facebook page, all of it. You will find her. She's working on some other projects right now that you'll be excited to take a look at. You can find me at Nike, Nike Writes. I'm sorry, Nike Writes. I need to know my own page. NikeWrites.wordpress.com. Check out my book Persistence of Vision on Amazon. And also follow Don. Okay, we lost him back in January. It doesn't seem that long, but go check him out, donmiskel.com. Look him up on Facebook, his writer page, and get his book, The Brandywine Trilogy, also on Amazon. And again, check out Robert Rice Jr. at smoothology.net. So until next time, have a great week. See you later.